Everybody, the intrepid Daniel McDonnell is with us from Helsinki to Athens to Oriel Park on Friday coming. Dan, hello.
Hi, Joe.
Good to see you. Good trip.
It was, yeah. It was quirky. Like, it's a really weird double header to go from Finland to Athens, you know, to go from winter and like some of the worst rain you ever experienced to all of a sudden landing into sweltering sort of summer-like weather.
Well, I told Aidan Fitzmaurice on Friday's podcast, you're all going to catch a cold, everyone. You know, that's just too much for the system to handle. And it's me, Dan.
You're sick. Yeah, I'm not sick at all.
Don't let my antibiotics vibe over here.
Yeah.
Just get nice and close to me.
Yeah. No, like it was I have to say I quite enjoyed it. Like it is strange. I mean, I know we spoke last week about the deflating nature of the beat in some respects at the moment, but in saying that, there is still something about international football and the sort of novelty value of the places it can bring you to that is still alluring. You know, it's just personal preference, taste. Like, you know, it's I'd hate to be covering a sport where you just went to the same cities every year or every second year, you know, and oh, lovely, we're going back to here. Oh, you know, I stay in the same place as the last time or whatever. I just love the variety of going somewhere off the beaten track, and you do see with the fans like
Oriel Park.
Well, that's that too, Joe. But like the international beat, like even just coming back on the flight on Monday from Athens, where actually it was kind of funny that everyone in the plane, because we were flying while the league games were on. So when we taxied and landed, you could see everyone turning their phones on and going, "Oh, did you see that result?" Yeah. But there's this sort of sense. There is that sense of community, which is very hard to explain, but you do see it. Like a lot of people do travel on their own. You see to these games, and maybe the last couple of years, like it's been a grim time for them. But you do see a lot of the same faces. You'll see them in Armenia. You'll see them in. You'll see them in Athens. You'll see them in wherever it might be, and obviously now they're on that pursuit of something good, something cheerful. Like you see them looking sad sometimes, but actually there still is something about it. And a week that brings you from Helsinki to Athens, and people have different tales about getting from A to B and stuff. There's it is.
There's a charm to it. It's
there
great.
There still is something charm to it. Yeah,
no, it's a great outlet.
I'd never been to Helsinki. It was one of the countries I wanted to tick off the list, and I actually really enjoyed that part of the trip. Athens, I can give or take Athens.
How indulged and privileged do you sound?
I'm just saying.
You can take or leave your free trip to Athens. Not your first one there, obviously.
I went last year.
Yeah, listen, it gets old. When you go to Athens once every year, you kind of think, I'm done with that.
No, it's too mainstream, you know. It's too many tourists there, yeah.
So Thomas Tuchel is England manager, won't take charge until 2025. Lee Carsley gets one more round with all his friends in the media, and then Tuchel will take over. We have different reactions from different people. Here's the man himself. So he did like a social media posting a hello. He's got a press conference obviously today, but here are the first words of Thomas Tuchel at Wembley Stadium talking to the English fraternity at large.
Hi guys, Thomas here. Quite a bit nervous. It's my first message. As the English head coach, I'm at Wembley, where else? And there's also a reason to be a bit nervous. I think that's a good thing. I can promise you I'm very excited. I'm very honored, and I will do everything that we have qualify for World Cup first of all, and then we have a successful World Cup and try to get a second star on our shirt. All the best, and see you soon in the stadium.
Our shirt. This guy's going to be singing God Save the Queen.
He's been asked at his first press conference already.
Ooh, what was his answer?
I'll have to see about that.
This is going to be a lot of fun. As well as, you know, on a footballing side, watching Thomas Tuchel be the centre point of a grandiose culture war will also have its own intrigue. So you would think it's just the Mail Sport comment piece, written by Mail Sport reporter. What did you read into that?
Well, but Jeff Powell did a piece as well. I mean, Jeff Powell is the...
You think Jeff Powell is Mail Sport
reporter?
No,
Jeff Powell was one of the sort of absolutely preposterous piece about Carsley not singing the anthem last month, about how, you know, Gareth Southgate had all the attributes of an English gentleman. It's like, you know... There was actually a suggestion yesterday that when this happened, well, everyone's waiting for the Jeff Powell piece, and that happened. But the the Mail back page is basically like an editorial. It's like an editorial. You won't have bylines in the editorials here either. But it's very unusual to see one on a back page. But I think for online purposes, they obviously had to stick by Mail Sport reporter on it.
Okay, they shouldn't have. But anyway.
Oh.
So it's a dark day for England as the manager's job goes to a...
That's a German, obviously.
German.
Yeah.
In capital letters. Germans in all caps. And Thomas Tuchel only has 18 months to prove he's up to it. The gist of the piece, I mentioned this on the previous podcast, so we won't labour the point. We've Thomas Tuchel, German with questionable managerial background, FA running around like headless chickens. What does this say about the English coaching system? I think that's a fairer question. This is a dark day for English football. We are the laughingstock of the world game. Now, Harry Redknapp has been on Sky Sports as well, and he's talking about how ideally he would like an Englishman to manage England, and the Premier League pool isn't as big as he would like of English managers because he thinks, foreign owners, they tend towards foreign managers, and it's not ideal. Now, he's been kind of ridiculed as hard right winger for those comments. I don't think it's that outrageous if you want to say, I'd quite like an Irishman to manage Ireland. In a sporting context, that's a step away from...
It's some of the players saying it during the summer.
I'd really prefer no immigrants. It's there's a fair few steps to that point, but he's kind of been talked about in those terms, I read that. And I think unfairly, he does not strike me as somebody who's racist. You're allowed to say you'd like someone of your own nationality to manage your own national team. And luckily for Harry, he's not alone. So Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher are weighing in on the situation on It's Called Soccer with Rebecca Lowe.
I'm shocked. I'll be honest with you, I'm shocked. I'm shocked tonight that England have appointed... I don't want this to be about Thomas Tuchel. It's nothing to do with Thomas Tuchel. I'm shocked tonight that England have appointed a international coach.
They've literally thrown a grenade into their entire new ethos.
I think it's embarrassing that we as a nation are saying we need a foreign coach to make us successful.
I think we are damaging our own coaching programme, and we are also damaging our own brand, if you like. Tuchel will receive horrific criticism if he doesn't succeed and he doesn't do well, doesn't get through groups and stuff like that. He will not like some of it. There's no doubt.
I've always been of the opinion that the England manager should be English. I'll never change that.
He might go and win a tournament. We might all be grateful in 3-4 years for the work that he's done. But something inside me here, as I sit here today, tells me that it's not quite right and that it doesn't feel right that Thomas Tuchel would be the manager of England.
It's kind of striking the way they're all talking about this as if Sven and Capello had never happened.
Well, I mean, there was warm tributes to Sven, as we know, very recently from some of those players. So, I don't know. I mean, like... everyone in the Premier League, everyone working around the Premier League, pundits, players, everyone is like benefiting massively from the wealth created by global interest, by global attention. Like, it seems to me quite natural in the context of that England might have an overseas manager. Like when you have... I understand. I know what you're saying. There is a danger of just like you label everyone's opinions as ridiculous. Like, and I mean, as a back page editorial comment, I mean, that is just preposterous, right? That's gone to another level.
Sorry, agreed on that.
That's gone to another level. Yeah. But I understand the point about the coaching system and what does it say. But there's a difference. I suppose there's the difference between what's it say at the coaching system and is this a good appointment? I still feel like the starting point is this a good appointment? Now, you look at home here. I think ideally Ireland wouldn't be appointing Heimir. In either word, there would be a litany of like Irish candidates ready to go.
Yeah.
And there may well be in 2 or 3 years' time, and maybe at this point it wasn't the case. And of course, Jack Charlton, like we're obviously very different perspective on it here.
I guess their perspective is we traditionally and very much in recent times are a footballing stronghold. We should absolutely be able to come up with somebody who can take the job. That's that's an aspect to this. I think that's, to be fair to Neville and Carragher, they're very aware that Fabio Capello and Sven-Göran Eriksson managed previously, but I suspect they feel England have progressed since then.
Yeah, but there's obviously, should this be happening versus are you shocked that it's happening? Like, obviously when Gareth Southgate was appointed, I'm sure there was some commentary along the lines of England have appointed an under-21 manager who didn't do well at Middlesbrough. What were the CVs? Like, what's Lee Carsley's CV would have been spoken of at times in a sort of but he's never managed anywhere level. But he might still have been the best English/Irish candidate available. Okay, Graham Potter. Okay, Eddie Howe.
Yeah. They're two good candidates.
They are good candidates, but you're not talking about like exceptional CVs either.
No. On Tuchel, so let's park the nationality point, but it is going to be interesting. I mean, I'm kind of surprised today. Maybe I shouldn't have been, the extent to which it blew up, but it has.
Shows that Carsey last week, by the way, knew. I think Carsey got a bit of unnecessary flack last week. He's a real company man. He knew what was coming. He was a good company man, and clearly at times maybe tried to speak honestly, then felt, I need to go back and row back in the party line. I think in hindsight,
the confused messaging is explained.
Makes a lot more sense.
I think so. On Tuchel, obviously, look, I guess we would all know him especially well from his time at Chelsea, where he did just a phenomenal job. I mean, it was really one of the great managerial performances that I can remember in a very long time. You can easily forget Lampard was the manager, and again, somebody who's open to ridicule, I'm sure, but what was being said by everybody at the time when Lampard was manager, if that Chelsea side was, well, this squad is so imbalanced, it makes no sense. Like, it's a complete, we need to start all over. Like, I think one of the compensations Lampard has was like, well, Kante's going to have to be a chalk on the boots right winger. You know, it's in certain games. He was trying everything. And to a man and to a woman, pundits were saying, this doesn't fit, this jigsaw doesn't work. And Tuchel on his first game looked at it all and made perfect sense of it. 3-4-2-1, and subsequently won the Champions League, beating Atletico, Porto, Real Madrid and Manchester City. Like, it was a phenomenal managerial performance. Obviously, PSG was PSG. He got them to a Champions League final, and that was a fairly dysfunctional club to manage at the time. And then Bayern more recently, it doesn't look great. Xabi Alonso and Leverkusen win the league by 17 points. They did get to a Champions League final. I was reading a piece on The Athletic as to why things went wrong for Bayern by somebody who's obviously far more familiar with Bayern week to week. There was a sense that he was left short in terms of defensive personnel. This was kind of the core problem with the team. Elder statesmen moving on, and one or two signings didn't come to fruition. So that was kind of a core issue. Interestingly, Bayern's offensive play looked stodgy. And so what somebody very close to the dressing room says, players were afraid of losing the ball, knowing the coach would have a go at them if they tried slightly riskier passes over the top of defences or through the lines. And the piece says, it can't have helped that Tuchel made no attempt to hide his displeasure on the touchline. Instead of the love and support some of these players needed, they were faced with a coach often shaking his head in despair or making dismissive gestures. Now, given the pressure cooker that is playing for England, my Chelsea enthusiasm is definitely a touch undercut by that version of Tuchel at Bayern, because this English team do not need any of that.
No, it's true, and at times during the Euros, like, they were possibly at their best in games that were a bit looser. You know, they actually struggled in some of the stodgier games, and you could see that actually the burden was that they were wearing was quite heavy. And actually, that I was at semi-final against Netherlands, and that was a bit wild. But actually, all of a sudden, it suited players. All of a sudden, Foden and some of the more creative players were sort of liberated by that. So, I mean, you have to take that criticism of his time at Bayern and say fair enough. I just think this is different because, I mean, ultimately, I mean, the arrogance of England as well. He can take over next year. There's no panic. Like, they sort of know he's probably going to qualify for this. So really, you're almost sort of hiring someone for a cup competition, effectively.
And people have said of Tuchel, there is a cup competition quality to what he's really, really good at.
Rather than a year where you're trying to build, and we've had this discussion again here, look, how much can you do with your players in that period of time? So it's more about like a focused, clear plan to get you through a month, 5 weeks to navigate a tricky quarterfinal, a semi-final. Now, I just think there's no guarantee of success with that either, but they obviously feel, well, you know, from an English perspective, we need to give ourselves the best possible chance because we've seen we can get to the business end. You know, where is that difference maker? And to be fair, a lot of people have said about England over the last couple of tournaments, a criticism of Southgate, when it's come to the crunch, he can't get them over the line. The English candidates he mentioned, there is no track record that would suggest, well, they will definitely get you over the line. They might get you over the line. Tuchel is one where it's more, he has to get you over the line, which means there'll be no forgiveness whatsoever if he fails, especially as he's German. So it's going to add another Laird. Of course, we have our man, Anthony Barry is going to be in as his number 2. Again, we're very happy to not just, provide you the international underage experience for Rice and Grealish. We're now providing it for Anthony Barry as well, for your assistant to go in. But that gives him, I suppose, I'll be interested to see who else is on his staff. Maybe that'll be confirmed in due course, what he gets around them. But I mean, this is really for them. It's a quite selfish, short term.
Let's win.
June 2026, July 2026. When it comes to the heat of a knockout game with whoever it might be, Spain, what are you going to do? And they almost feel like, we've got everything else covered. We've got the players. We don't need to worry too much about sitting around great, culture war debates about how we play or what style, or do we need to be horrible to play, or none of this stuff. It's like, we're England. We'll be through the groups, and then we'll see. Then we'll see where we are.
He wins the World Cup with England. You just wait and see Jeff Pell's piece. It'll be complimentary. I think you will.
I might draw the line there.
He might be the exception.
Other people will be, yeah.
No, they'll be crawling.
Yeah.
I think it's a great appointment, I have to say, unless this German thing gets out of all control, but I don't suspect it will. By the way, just before we talk all things Irish football, emails into indosportpodcast@independent.ie, please. Loads of them coming in, which is really great. We're reading them all, replying to many. Conor in Dublin, a quick one for you, Dan. Hi, Joe and team. My question is in relation to Lee Carsley. So after Tuchel, I'm noticing you're going Tuchel, by the way.
I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah,
I'm definitively in the Tuchel camp. So let's see where we end up.
Maybe you're right, yeah.
After Tuchel's appointment, do you guys think Lee Carsley regrets not taking the Ireland job? Personally, I would not consider him in the future after the past 12 months. Cheers, Conor in Dublin.
Wouldn't consider him for the Ireland job on the strength of that.
On the strength of him messing us around.
Well, I don't know. I think Carsley's managed to handle himself very well. He didn't bow to the anthem stuff. He went in true to himself. There's no file footage of him singing "God Save the King" anywhere.
I think Conor is more getting at the
stringing
stringing FAI along.
But I think that's his. I spoke to someone who sort of involved in football who would say, and complimentary about Lee Carsley, but would say that I think he's turned down club jobs in the past. That sort of he likes the thrill of the chase. This is more of his thing. He just needs to be a bit more like this is his game. This is not like. This is just how he operates, and he's very sort of methodical about his next move. And
I know who told you that.
Well, the extent to which he is that person, and I also will say,
it struck me as a harsh comment.
What did the FAI offer him?
I don't know. I don't get into all that again.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, was he made an offer he couldn't refuse? I'm not sure if that's the case.
Yeah, okay.
I think.
So Conor and Dublin writing him off. I think
from afar he would have had a few concerns about what he was getting into.
Okay. Well, that is Thomas Tuchel. Let's move to some Irish football now. There was an email in from Pat last week for you, so I thought I'd get it in early here. He says, "Hi Joe, if Dan McDonnell brackets or anyone suitable end brackets is on the pod this week, could you ask them to explain the pros and cons?" You got to keep this brief.
Okay.
The pros and cons, if any, of Ireland avoiding relegation in the Nations League campaign. I have seen some people suggesting that maybe relegation would benefit us, as it would help us get more wins next time around against weaker opposition. But when Dan was on the pod with you and Dion, he said it was important that we don't get relegated. I don't think he had a chance to explain why. Thanks, Pat.
Okay, I think at any other time I would agree with that argument to build up a bit of confidence. I did watch Northern Ireland win 5-0 against Bulgaria last night.
When's the last time you got to write about 5 Ireland goals in a game?
Yeah, a lot of confidence, and probably against Gibraltar at some stage, but like full of confidence. But the one thing I would say is Euro 2028 is the big thing here. If we're going to sort of lie down and do whatever the politicians want for us to have Euro 2028 here, then you need to be in that tournament. As it stands, UEFA are keeping... Well, actually, UEFA haven't said anything, but as it stands, the information is that UEFA are going to hold 2 places back for hosts who don't qualify through regular qualifying. Okay. Now, we expect England obviously will qualify, and you'd imagine maybe one of Scotland or Wales would as well. Maybe both, who knows?
Craig Bellamy is setting records as new Wales manager, unbeaten in his first 4 games. Thank you very much.
They're doing okay. Scotland might be on the downgrade a little bit. Okay. And basically, there's going to be for the nations who don't qualify, there's going to be a league table ranking of those nations for the automatic places. And
so for a second, let's operate on the basis that England and Scotland get things going again, and Bellamy falls away. So England and Scotland have qualified.
Yes.
And we want to get to Euro 2028. So that would leave Wales, Northern Ireland and the Republic.
Yeah, we need now the status of Northern Ireland needs to be clarified around Casement Park here, but I think it would be ballsy and even politically questionable in the broader picture, UK government, for Northern Ireland to be told, actually, you don't have any hosting privileges at all because we stopped paying for your stadium at the last minute. Yeah. I'm not going to go down that Casement Park road. Northern Ireland at the moment are winning their League C group.
Okay.
If they get up to League B, Scotland are going to be in League B minimum. Wales are going to be in, they're in, I think, are they in A at the moment or B? Either way, put it like this, as it stands, the only one with a chance of being in C are Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland.
Okay.
So we want to be ranked higher than them in the Nations League. And if Northern Ireland get promoted to B and we're down in C, we're going to be down at the bottom of that table of host nations. And if we ended up needing that back door, we could be in trouble. The whole rationale about going to League C is that you will go to League C and you will win loads of games there, and you can get a playoff spot through League C like Georgia did the last time. But as you can see, that involves going to League C, winning your group, being absolutely perfect, and winning a playoff. Like, ended up with Georgia and Greece the last time. Like, at the moment, you've got Sweden in League C, Slovakia, Romania. Being in League C is worth it if you think you're going to be the best team in League C. Otherwise, you're better being in B because you have a better chance of a playoff fallback. That's simple terms for me.
Okay.
But yeah, I can see any other tournament. I think we should have been relegated in the past. It would have helped us. It would have helped Stephen Kenny. It would have helped other people. I think even Heimir this time starting off in League C with a chance to go up to B for the Euros. But the big point is Euro 2028 is the big tournament for us, and we want to be starting as high up the Nations League ladder as possible, not at our lowest point since we've gone into the Nations League.
Okay. And obviously we're Wales to keep it going, and England, Scotland and Wales qualified of their own volition.
Well, then we're in. Who cares? But I mean, okay. we want to be very confident. Are we going to get relegated on the basis of what we think Scotland and Wales might do in the next couple of years?
I'd say no. So talk to us then. Put a final full stop postcard from Helsinki and Athens, kind of a conversation here, Dan. Winners against Finland and obviously losers against Greece. What do you want? Well, give us the behind the scenes, because we've obviously done a big podcast with Gary and Damien and talked about the games at length. I asked you with Dion last week, and you said, "Oh, it's a strange question. I don't really know what to say to that." Are you impressed by Heimir Hallgrimsson? So after the last week, what's your updated answer?
Yeah, no, I think definitely got to see more of him, and definitely any of the stuff, I suppose, about control and that general thing, which he, let's be honest, he probably fueled it himself with some things that he said or did. But definitely there is a lot more sense of, okay, he is the gaffer, he's very much in charge. I think what I like about him is, and I did come across in your chat with the lads, I do think he's very confident in himself. Now, you can be confident in yourself and not good at your job, right? But, you can have false confidence. But I think he does convey a certain amount of authority and a sort of a clarity and conviction in his thoughts, which I think is good. I think from the communication side of things, again, this stuff maybe shouldn't really matter too much, but I think it does matter in this position. Very relaxed, yeah. It's strange. He's changed a couple of things around preparation for games. Like normally, Ireland would play. Well, as we know, the two games were actually very late. They're about 9:45 p.m. local time, which is really unusual. Waiting around all day for a game. But generally, the training on the day before would be at the kickoff time or around that time. He's decided to train early in the morning. I think there's something in the hotel. He doesn't want players on their feet after 3 o'clock in the day. He wants them to be more relaxed and not sort of training on that sort of eve of the game. So they're very early morning training sessions, and then there's like 20 plus hours to the game. And it's just a little thing he's brought in. But anyway, the way it's worked out, all of a sudden we're there quite early before both games in Helsinki and in Athens. And you just wander around, you just come over, have a chat. Hello. This invisible wall that's always meant to be there, that you're not meant to be sort of communicating in any way. It's very much distance. You wait behind that rope, you know. I do think, and it's part of what he said maybe before the window about he's surprised by how big the job is. He's surprised by the attention. He's surprised by the size of the travelling support. Like, you do look, like in Iceland, he was in that sort of that quaint scenario where he would go to the local pub and tell them the tactics an hour before the game. And he's pretty much lived and worked in Iceland his whole life, where everyone is, you know, part-time in football because they need a second job, because it's not professional football. And this has been him until he's got to go to Qatar for a couple of years, you know, make your money off the back of the Iceland success. And then Jamaica, which again, I'd imagine is a slightly different beat to this, which is, again, has a certain intensity to it. And yet, I don't think he's changing within it. He's behaving like he would have been. So, you know, the press conference finishes, he doesn't go out. He'll just sort of linger around at the start, you know, top of the stage, have a chat. We were doing a dailies huddle after one of it. We noticed at the end of it, he had one of those little flossettes, dental floss, and he'd been flossing while he was talking to us, you know. Just like incredibly chilled and relaxed. And
do dentists traditionally have good teeth themselves?
Yeah, I haven't been looking closely, but I mean, I'm not sure how much time he'd had to eat between the end of the game and coming to see us, that he felt the need to, like, I need to get the flossing in during the press conference.
Do you floss?
On occasion, yes. Not always as good as remembering.
No.
Like, you know, like he's one of those, the dentists sometimes try and push those little flossets on you.
I
you
never
know?
floss.
Do you not?
Never.
Yeah.
Never occurs to me to do.
I know. I mean, I would be reasonably diligent. Maybe now around Heimir, you're a little bit more.
I'd say everyone's giving a quick
everyone
extra
needs,
toothbrush in the jacks.
Especially don't be getting too close. And he was sick as well before. The other thing as well, he actually was sick. You talk about getting sick. He was sick in Athens, and he said he was isolated from the players for a bit of the match day itself. But it's just that general air of, like, just, I mean, it's just small talk. You know, how did you get here? You know, do you all travel together? What way does it work? And but in his own way, like, it's sort of, there's a certain sense of presence. He knows his role. He knows he's the manager, and I have to say you would warm to that. But also,
it's almost like that's what he wants.
Well, this is the thing, and you have to have your eyes open to that, of course, completely. But like he's quite comfortable in himself. And I did speak to some people in the FA about it, and they would say that's definitely one of his strengths. I think in a room that he's very sort of, he's happy in his own skin, and he's not. And you sometimes see managers who go into jobs and they, like, suddenly feel they need to dress differently, or you know, to surround themselves with handlers. And, like, I mean, we've seen this with Irish managers in the past, where they almost end up in the job acting differently or carrying themselves differently to the reasons that they were appointed, you know, and that's not where you want to be. It's like the job, and of course, the little caveat, of course, here is that for most nations the size of Ireland, and I mean, even Jack Charlton's last campaign was a bad one. There will probably be a time when we are tired with this, and people are like, oh, we need someone who's a bit more intense. Maybe this guy is too relaxed, and we'll get to that cycle. But at this stage, I think for where the team is, I think his personality probably is a good attribute, and it's striking that I think it's more to be able to come out and speak clearly about, you know, after the games.
He's a very good communicator.
Yeah, and I can see how he probably impressed in probably an interview scenario. Like when he was interviewing for the job, he was like, I think part of it, he was shown clips of previous games. You know, I think he was shown some of the games against Greece last year, and what would you have done in this situation? And I can see how, in that environment, he could probably own the room a bit.
Comfortable in his own skin is a good phrase. I think that's very much my impression of him. In terms of on the pitch, again, Damien and Gary have had a very educated say on things, but you were at the games. You can get a different slant on what's going on. Anything strike you? Yeah,
I mean, I thought, look, there is no doubt. I mean, there was massive fortune in Finland, and you can't get away from it. Like the second half, like from minute 65 to 85, Ireland didn't play well, completely lost control of the game from a brilliant start to the second half, and a good period before half time as well. But you're going to need that little bit of luck, and I think I've been through so many sort of sliding doors defeats. I think you sort of go, well, okay, let's see where it takes you. And there was a degree of bravery around it and how they went for it. And then Greece, yeah, I mean, like, Greece were very good. Like, they are
good.
The energy at which they play, like it's and a sort of cohesion. And again, like, I mean, some of these players aren't world beaters in terms of where they are at in the club game, but I think it's just the individual quality possibly they possess, but the fact that they're really clicking as a team at the moment. But I thought Ireland were good after half time. There's definitely what I think the positive stuff is, I think, in terms of reacting to situations within the game, making changes. As much as the changes, you could argue, in Finland didn't quite click straight away. I mean, eventually, Festi comes on with that big contribution. Would he have come on if Ogbenny wasn't injured? I mean, that's a bit of a debate. But I think in terms of the game on Sunday, I liked the changes he made. I think there's a lot more fluidity in terms of formation. It's actually sometimes quite hard to figure out, okay, what is it? Is it a back three? Is it a back four here? What's happening? The sort of rotation of certain players. It's interesting. I think Smodics is going to be a talking point going forward. There was an interesting one where in Greece, when it was clear Ferguson was going off, and Smodics instinctively started walking towards the central striking position because that's where he went in Finland when Ferguson went off. And straight away, Jack Taylor just comes on and was like, no, that's not happening. And sort of sent him back out left. And Sammy's just went back and just diligently kept doing his thing.
More shuttle runs for Sammy.
Yeah, but I think there's Troy Parrott went up. I think there's quite a few versatile Irish players. But I do think that's going to be a debate going forward around the use of Smodics, because you would imagine Ferguson's always going to play. You would imagine Ogbene is always going to play. So then you've got like a central striker and you have someone who's going to be a right winger in that position. So if Smodics wants to play through the centre, who plays on the left? Is it just going to be two midfielders behind? It may well be that he's going to be condemned to that role. With Ireland going forward, even if in certain games might be a bit more narrow and might be a little bit more closer to the action with wing backs outside, depending on the situation. But I do like that there does seem to be sort of a flexibility in terms of changes within games. But again, Ireland were still quite well beaten, despite playing well in the second half. I mean, ultimately, they were still, and I think the lads broke it down well in terms of, despite all this talk of being horrible to play against and this vague stuff about like being fighters and stuff like that, still weren't that hard to play against for Greece in terms of chance, and even for Finland in terms of chance creation. I mean,
I dare say if you asked the Greek players about that game, the horrific off the field situation notwithstanding, but they would have said that was a really enjoyable game. Like we kind of had our way with them really, and like fizzed it around and got into all sorts of pockets and created chances. I would have said that was not horrible to play against.
No, definitely not. And I mean, there's definitely little things. I am interested in that. The next squad now is going to be a little bit more interesting, because I think, and it does back up something he said at the start, which maybe a couple of people we weren't sure about it. But he says that there's a lot of players and there's not much difference between them. Yeah. But I actually do see his point. Like if Smallbone comes back in now, like I think the only outfield player who didn't play any part in the two games was Omoba Badele, and Mark McGuinness was injured. So like someone who was involved is going to be dropped from the squad. If Smallbone comes back in, does Coleman come back in if he's fit?
I think Finn Azaz is probably in trouble.
But I don't know. Actually, but his explanation for why Azaz played would make me think he will be in the squad and possibly involved in games like the Finland game, in that he said for the games where you need more of a number 10, he might be the player. And that's the player that Ireland are still looking for. Okay. Taylor obviously came on.
I'd quite like him to say that Smodics is going to be our number 10. I think most people would.
Well,
he's a much brighter option than Finn Azaz. He can do more on the ball. He can pick a pass.
I don't think he's a number 10 in his natural style. He's a number 9. No, he's a 9. And Ferguson likes to drop deep. Like, this is one of the things. Evan Ferguson always has to play, but Evan Ferguson is a come short and get involved player. So this is part of the issue. Like, it might well be that it's Smodics as a 9, but Ferguson as a 10 in certain games.
Maybe.
But I don't really see Smodics as that link player.
I'm surprised you don't.
No,
yeah,
I don't.
Jeez, I really do. It's funny opinions and
running
everything.
Behind, I think, is his strength.
I don't know. I think technically he's so good and bright, and his ball retention is good. If you fire into his feet in that 10 position, he can get in the half turn. He can pick a pass. He can have a clever little first or second touch to kind of evade a man. In some respects, I think Ferguson. I know Ferguson likes to come short, and I wouldn't judge him overly on these two games. But actually, that aspect might need to get a bit better for Ireland on the evidence I've seen so far. I don't you might like coming short and you do it really well for Brighton, but actually, how good has it been for Ireland? I think that's a question mark.
He had 100% pass completion in Finland, Evan Ferguson.
Well, that doesn't mean he always kind of maintained possession when it went into him.
No, but if
you maintain possession and then you eventually pass, you'll have 100% pass completion.
I thought he did quite well, Evan, in Finland. Actually, I think for him there was positive aspects in that camp for someone who hadn't started a game
for sure
all season, and I think it's more important that he plays than Smolix plays, if you know what I mean. I think he still has the potential to be that game changer, and he also had bodies around him because people know that as well.
Well, there could be a point in the future where they do play as a partnership and actually they both have the ability to come short if needs be, and you reckon Smolix likes running in behind Ferguson? I guess it may have to develop that a touch more for
maybe. I think the problem Ireland have in general is that they don't have natural fullbacks. I think someone has made that point, that there's an issue in terms of fullbacks and maybe even in terms of wingers, I actually don't know who plays on the left side if it's not Smolix.
Yeah,
the Jamie McGrath can play there, but he's a bit more narrow. Mikey Johnston is just he's very right-footed. I think Mikey Johnston is a good player, but it's a question of, is he a 4-3-3? Is he a 4-4-2? I think if you left winger, I'm not so sure.
If you've Brady, and by the way, doesn't need to be said, what a great window for Brady. But if you have that natural left footer in Robbie Brady getting outside of Mikey Johnston, then I think that just helps with the balance issue. Whereas a Kieran Trippier at the Euros as the fullback, then there's just no one. You need someone with a left foot out there. But then it has to be a game where Robbie Brady's able to get forward, and that won't always be the case. But they're kind of, you look at those various problems. They're not unsolvable. They're nice enough problems. There's a degree of talent there now that we can start to feel better about.
And you could have Andrew Moran coming into it across the next 12, 18 months. Right. I mean, and I appreciate you have to be careful about egging up 21s performances as we've seen in the past, but the 21s were exceptional in their campaign. Very, very unlucky. I mean, just the concession of some of the late goals is sort of, you couldn't script it almost. But Andrew Moran is one who's, I think, quite tactically versatile in terms of maybe being an option off the left at times in a certain type of game. But I think the manager probably has an idea of his strongest team-ish now. I wouldn't say he's a million miles away from it. I think it's that, whatever you want to call it, the number 10 area is possibly the major one, and maybe some of the left side if Smolix wants to play through the middle.
On the 21s, before we mentioned Friday night, which, by the way, you said to me in a voice note, Friday night coming could be the best night in League of Ireland history that I can recall.
Yeah, in terms of potential storylines, I don't recall anything like it at this stage of the season, no.
Well, the 21s, Sean O'Connor was there for the Irish Independent, so I'm very much working off Sean's work here. They were one result away from a bit of history and qualifying for the Euros next year, but alas, Italy scored late, and so it was a draw, and Jim Crawford's men have finished in third place. No automatic qualification, no November playoff. The concession in a pair of cork draws against Italy last November, and then Norway on Friday, fairly fatal. And then last month there was a 2-2 draw with Latvia, which kind of killed them. They had 24 attempts on goal in Tala and only managed to draw 2-2 with the fifth seeds in Latvia. And so ultimately there were, young men, there were tears, and it was very, very disappointing. Is there anyone there? You mentioned Moran, who's, because look, you want the team to do well, but ultimately if the team do just fine, but you get one or two for the senior side, that's more of a success. Is there anyone that Dan McDonnell would stake his life on?
I think Moran's got a good chance. I think Sinclair Armstrong as a central striker, he's doing well at Bristol City this year. I think he's got a good chance of being around the squad. I mean, he was around it a bit last year. I'd love to see Sam Curtis really push on. Full backs is a problem area. He's on loan at Peterborough at the moment from Sheffield United. I definitely think Curtis is one. Bosun Lawal, who was injured, which is a big injury in the camp, and might still be a very good option in the holding midfield department. But it is hard to know. I mean, I do think one of the things about the last 12 months or so, I mean, look the new players people are talking about, like Smolix, wasn't involved ever at underage level with Ireland. Finn Azaz just come in and played a playoff in Israel. Jack Taylor was around under Kenny in his 21s team, but it was a sort of a fringe option. Liam Scales, similarly, and that very exciting Kenny 21s team. And obviously it was Aaron Connolly, there was Parrott, there was Conor Masterson. There was certain players in certain positions Neil Ferrugia at the start, and yet some of the ones that are coming through now weren't the frontliners then. And not many of them Irish born as well, some of the ones that are breaking through. So I think we had a very battle-hardened 21s team. A lot of them have been playing men's football, maybe at a young age in the League of Ireland here. But is there still a question mark over making that jump, that next step up? So they're the names that spring out to me, but judging by who's come through the last couple of years, I mean, it could be some of the lads coming in off the bench now that suddenly make that jump. But I think more in the shorter term, I'd like to see him in the squad soon enough, definitely. Yeah.
Let's finish with another version of Nobody Wants to Win It. Coming to your screens on Friday night. Is any of it coming to our screens on Friday night?
Yeah, no, it is.
Okay.
It's Shell's. Waterford is on Virgin, but Virgin do the around the ground stuff. They have they don't do the sort of production quality of RTE, but they pull the LOI TV feed, which means they can have goals from around the place, which could be quite beneficial.
To jog everyone's memory, Shelburne are 2 points clear of both Derry City and Shamrock Rovers, both tied for second. So 2 points in it. 3 games to go.
3 games to go. No games at hand now. It's all pretty clear.
Yeah, that does make it easier. So 2 points, everyone on the same number of games. Shelburne clear of Derry and Shamrock Rovers, both tied for second. And then I guess you can't not mention, again, same number of games played, just 4 points off Shells, Pats and Galway. So Shelburne have home advantage against Waterford. Surely, say Shelburne. I mean, surely. On the same evening, Drogheda will be hosting Shamrock Rovers. And then Derry, whose away form obviously is very questionable, will be at Dundalk. You're going to that game. And then, interestingly, in kind of an eliminator as to who might be the outsider, Pats play Galway. So, really,
it's like an Olympic repechage, that one.
Yeah.
Whoever loses is done. Yeah.
But the other is kind of still in the conversation, not least if all the others mess up, as is their want. So, kind of crude question. Who comes away with 3 points from the big three at the moment?
I don't know.
Come on. Shelburne, Waterford, 3 points.
They have to. Look,
God's sake.
Waterford are the only team in the Premier Division who now basically have nothing to play for.
Could Shelburne win the league without getting another point?
I don't think it's physically possible with some of the games that teams have to play each other.
That's true.
It's a slight issue.
Shelburne, Derry abandoned.
It's simple. If Shelburne's next 2 home games are against Waterford and Drogheda, if they win those, they get to 60. And that takes Pats and Galway out of it. And it also means that if Rovers drop points away to Drogheda or Dundalk, they're sort of half done if Shell's got a point the last day. So there's many permutations. There is many permutations. I mean, I was looking there was a league table from July the 27th. And at that point, Shells were on 47 points. Derry were on 44. I think Waterford were third on 37. Rovers were on 34. Pats were on 28 points at that stage. They're only 5 ahead of Dundalk. And now Pats are 4 points off the top. Pats in their last 3 games have gone away to the other 3 Dublin clubs and scored 3 goals in each of them.
I mean, not to get ahead of ourselves, are Pat's favourites for the league?
They are. I think they probably are. They're doing sensational things.
So come on then, Shelburne 3 points.
I do feel like they will win on Friday. I do. I sort of think they have some bodies back. They've had 12 days off. It's a real test actually of management. Have you dialed it down or have you cranked it up? What have they done? Because I mean, they have a great chance if they win their next 2 games. And I mean, Shells have had their issues, but Derry had the chance to put on the pressure. 2 home games, Friday, Monday, and they didn't win either of them.
Which makes me less inclined to think they're going to do well against Dundalk away.
Well, Dundalk, you see, the thing about that game is Dundalk are relegated unless they win. So it's a sort of a do or die element for them, and it's Derry's 3rd game in a week. Even though most of the Derry players used to play for Dundalk, so they know the old Astro there isn't going to catch them out like it does other teams. But if Derry don't win that game, I mean, they play Pats next Friday.
Okay,
it's amazing.
And then Shamrock Rovers, Drogheda.
Shamrock Rovers, Drogheda. They have a terrible record in Drogheda. Okay, they have a terrible record in Drogheda.
So they'll win.
But it does look like Rovers are now the favourites to win it.
You reckon?
No, well, they are, but from a bookmaking point of view, they are now the favourites because
I'm not interested in the bookmakers. Who are Dan McDonnell's favourites?
But I understand why that is. I think if you're looking at the most probable results based on form, you can see why Rovers should win it. I just have a sneaky feeling they're going to drop points in one of the 2 Loud games because they have a bad record of doing so. And they play Larne in between in the Europa League next Thursday, Europa Conference League.
True.
So
Loud's a tough place to go.
It is. I mean, I tell you what, tough place to get out of as well. But the thing about it is that there's angles everywhere. And like sometimes at this stage of the season, it's like, well, there's maybe one game worth going to. Like Pat's Galway on Friday, it's probably the fourth game, even though in its own right, that is worth going to. So I have to say it's been the most enjoyable season in a long time.
Very good. Thanks, Dan.
No worries.